Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome to the stage AFSA's Chief Executive, Keith Reed.
Happy Friday. Hey, I know I'm dressed in the suit, but this is not church, so I would ask that you would consider moving closer so you can be closer to the action. But we're not going to make that mandatory. I see someone doing it. Yeah, come on closer to the front. See, all the winning tickets that we placed underneath the tables, the seats in the tables, they're up closer to the front. We did that on purpose. Over here. Okay, I did see the president outside. Did he make it in? Okay, yep. Mr. President, if you would, come on up and let's greet our delegates. These are all pre-convention activities, but we have some remarkable people that's going to speak to you. We'll come back with the appeal, and then we'll move straight into our parade of checks. So do this for me, if you will. How about a round of applause for our international president, Stephen Harrell?
All right. First off, welcome to Orlando. You guys ready to have a good time? All right. Who was here last year? You guys with me? You ready? We are? That's soft. That's weak. We got newcomers in here. This is embarrassing to us, guys. We are? There you go. There you go. Be ready. We're doing it tomorrow. We're going to do it Sunday. We got to shake the walls on that one. So this forum that we're about to have started last year. When you think about the efforts of the association, we have enlisted fellows doing the work, being the voice, matching what AFSA does, right? So having them come up board, share their story, give that experience, and hopefully motivate some high-speed AFSA members to apply for these positions and make a difference on Capitol Hill. Because these members, when they come out of it, man, just resources of information on how to get your voices heard and how to take part and hopefully maybe transition to be that person in the room for the voice of the people who make the sacrifices to serve our country. So thank you all for coming out. You're going to hear me run my mouth quite a few times this weekend, right? But honored to be the 29th International President, and I'm going to turn this thing over because we have some phenomenal speakers to share their experience with you. You guys have a good time.
So without further ado, I'll introduce AFSA's policy advisor, my policy advisor, one of the best friends I have because when times get rough, I can always go to him and vent. So ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome to the lectern, Mr. John Nutman.
How's everybody doing today? I appreciate the energy. Good afternoon to everybody. I want to please welcome our panel from the Department of the Air Force Legislative Liaison Team. We have them coming up shortly. Chief Master Sergeant Vic Perez, Senior Master Sergeant Amani Phillips, Senior Master Sergeant Amanda Osborne, and Master Sergeant Ryan Watson. Please join me in giving them a warm AFSA welcome. I'm going to let them take over the brief for now, but please listen closely. It's really an amazing program. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I am Senior Master Sergeant Amani Phillips. I am the Senior Enlisted Leader of the Secretary of the Air Force's Legislative Liaison Office. I'm accompanied by 3 graduated enlisted fellows, and they'll explain a little bit about the program, but they're going to introduce themselves first. Master Sergeant Watson.
Hi, everyone. I'm Master Sergeant Ryan Watson. I was an AY-24 fellow. I served on the Hill in Senator Mike Round's office. I've been with the Air Force for 16 years now. I just left my utilization phase in the Pentagon. I'm back in my AFSC, which is a 7S OSI Special Agent. Super happy to be here. Looking forward to anybody's questions.
Hi, I'm Senior Master Sergeant Amanda Osborne. I'm year 25, so right now I'm in the last part of the fellowship program, working in SAF FML as a legislative liaison on the House side. Last year I was in Senator Bozeman's office of Arkansas, and he was a defense appropriator. I'm finance by trade, and yeah, looking forward to hearing from you guys.
Hi, hello, I'm Chief Vic Perez. I'm going to give you a mouthful, because when you've been doing this for a little while, you become a hat tree, right? So you start wearing multiple hats, and your bosses will eventually wear multiple hats, so please bear with me. So I'm the Senior Enlisted Advisor for my boss, Major General Matra. He is the Director of the Legislative Liaison at the Secretariat level. And then I'm also the Enlisted Fellows Program Manager, so helping with the hiring, the outplacement, the talent management of these amazing fellows that we have on stage. And lastly, along with my colleague, Senior Osborne, we are also the Legislative Advisor for SimSAF and SimSIF. So that's a lot. That's a big mouthful, but what our team does to provide for the Air Force, I think it's something remarkable. Hopefully you guys get something out of this. There's also, when I was on the Hill, I worked for Senator Kevin Kramer. So he's from North Dakota. He was the Air Land Subcommittee Chair under the Senate Armed Services Committee. Yeah, that's kind of me in a nutshell. Like I said, big mouthful, but it gets easier. Thank you.
Thank you, fellow. So before they dive into the program, I want to give you a little bit of information about the application requirements and selection timeline. Can you put the slide, please? All right, I won't go through everything, but I just want to highlight. So the program is for Master Sergeant, Senior Master Sergeants, and Senior Master Sergeant Selects. Right now, we're doing 18 years of, you can't have more than 18 years of service. We like a bachelor's degree, joint PME, and for the, so for working knowledge of Congress, like if you don't have that, but you're still interested in the program, like please apply. So don't let like all of these things that we would like prevent you from applying if you'd like to apply. So also if you have any questions for them in regards to like legislation, how it works, please don't be shy, come and ask. We'll come and answer those. So next we're gonna go into the different phases of the program.
So yeah, there's 3 total phases within the program. I'm going to cover the first one. Senior Master Sergeant Osborne is going to cover the second, and Chief Perez is going to cover the third. For your first, it's called your developmental tour. Obviously, you are coming out of your AFSC, out of your specialty, into the legislative sphere, into legislative liaison. You likely do not have depth of experience there, and SAF LL and the Air Force understands that. So they take you within your developmental tour and they put you in kind of a lower risk environment, i.e. your developmental tour, on pretty well established, high functioning legislative liaison teams all throughout the government. There are individuals who go to DARPA, there are some people that go to the Department of State, there are people go to NASA. Personally, I went to RAND, the think tank. They have a very close working relationship with the Air Force, therefore, and a very close working relationship because a lot of their products end up on the desks of members of Congress. Their LL team is deeply plugged into the Air Force, deeply plugged into with Congress as well. So that is 6 months. Within that 6 months, you do your DAF Fellows orientation on the Hill. You do your big Air Force Fellows orientation with everyone, officers doing their IDE orientation, their SDE orientation, and then personal experience. It was phenomenal. It really sets you up well for the transition, seeing it from outside of the Hill going on to the Hill.
Okay, so the second part, the second phase is going to be your actual year on the Hill. So for all of us, it starts in January and it goes the entire calendar year to December. And how it works is Prior to that year, each office on the Hill that wants to participate in the fellowship program coordinates with DOW and submits the type of fellow they would like to see. So for my office specifically, Senator Bozeman's dad actually was a retired enlisted Air Force member, so it's really fun that Senator Bozeman specifically asked for an enlisted airman every single year. And DOW does what they can to try to best match what the member wants. It doesn't always work out that way. And another thing too is we try to make sure that these members are actually involved in defense committees. So my senator, for example, was on SAC-D, which is the Senate Appropriations Committee, a subcommittee on defense, and he's also the SAC-M chair, which is the Senate Appropriations Committee for MilCon and Veterans Affairs. So that's not always the case. Sometimes we have too many members asking and not enough fellows to provide them. So there are some situations, or it's vice versa. But we try to make sure every fellow is involved in some sort of defense related. It doesn't always work out that way where you're actually in a member's office that has Air Force equity. So a lot of our members, even though they're Air Force, they are tied to Navy, Army, whatever service is out there. In some districts on the House side specifically, they don't even have military bases, but their member sits on a committee that focuses on defense-related items. So you do your entire year on the Hill. It's a great time for most people. Obviously, you have no say-so in what office you wind up in. You have no say-so on if you're in the House or the Senate, if you're with an appropriator or an authorizer. It doesn't matter what party, like you have zero say-so in what office you end up in. Speaking for myself, I know my counterparts might have different opinions, but I truly landed the best office. Senator Bozeman is such a kind person, and he truly cares about our military and our veterans. So I had a really great experience on the Hill. Over to Chief.
Thank you. Just real quick on some of the things that Senior Osborne talked about. So I think that is kind of awesome that you don't get to choose where you go, because it may not align with your personal beliefs as a military member. So it gives you that elasticity to be able to switch, because as you guys, I'm sure you've experienced this, especially if you've been in for a minute, you're going to have different bosses with different work styles, different ways of thinking. And your ability to be flexible as an enlisted to eventually be an advisor to our commanders and our officers, I think it's very invaluable. So this is one of the very amazing experiences that you can have, is just to be working for a member of Congress, advocating for their defense equities, and at the same time sometimes testing your own personal beliefs. I think it is the hallmark, if you will, of an educator and a person of trying to seek that academic excellence, and be able to be elastic, right? Elasticity with your brain and the way you think and critically think through these things. So I think that's pretty awesome, and thanks for touching on that. And then after you're done with the Hill and you have an amazing time, with those 535 offices, whichever one you land on, then you get to utilization portion. What I will say about the utilization portion, I don't like the term utilization because it many times implies that that's your payback or that's the return on investment for the Air Force. And what I will say is that you truly need every single one of these phases to essentially become a fully qualified, fully competent liaison. And so when I'm going to brief SIMSAF or SIMSIF on hearing or their testimony or their engagements, that's part of the learning experience. And you figure out what their style is, and you also have your knowledge from Congress, and you got to merge both of those. And so it's a pretty awesome, it's very challenging, very, very challenging. So I will say that this program only hires the best of the best. And it's really what you want. And don't think to yourselves, if you're even considering applying for this program and you know nothing about Congress, please don't rule yourself out. Because I'll tell you personally, I was at the Sergeant Major Academy about to graduate, trying to figure out where I go next. And I couldn't tell you what the difference between the House and the Senate. For me, Congress, House, and Senate was all synonymous, right? And I applied to gain that knowledge. So we will put you through the knowledge. We will train you. And then we're going to immerse you on the Hill. And finally, we're going to have you apply all those skills and those knowledge that you've gained and your network and your Rolodex. And then we're going to put the application portion. And hopefully, which is something that we're working with SimStaff and SimCiv, is what's the return on investment in the long term? Like after you've developed this competency, what does that look like? Do you go work for legislative matters at the installation level, at the numbered Air Force level, at the MAJCOM level? What does that look like? So those are things that we're figuring out, and obviously we're trying to follow what SimStaff's vision is for the program. But I will say that he's a huge advocate for the program. So it's not going anywhere. And we're hoping to expand and cement it more as an institution. This program's been around since 2013 with one enlisted fellow. Now, I mean, we've had now graduated fellows, like around 40 fellows, enlisted fellows, right? And just to give you an example of ratio, in my cohort, we had about 6 enlisted fellows on the Air Force side. We had a Guard fellow and a Space Force fellow, and about 28 or so officer fellows. We go hand in hand. They go through the exact same training as you do. They go through the exact same immersion in Capitol Hill and very similar application portion on the third phase. There is no difference that you can point. When you see somebody in a suit, you cannot tell who's enlisted and who's officer. And that's the caliber of personnel that we hire in this program.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions about the program? And I just want to highlight, Chief mentioned it a little bit, but Space Force has their own hiring and their own like kind of requirements. But if you have any questions, please come see me, and I'll definitely link you up to help on the Space Force side. But does anybody have any questions we can answer for you right now?
We got no question. I'll speak on one that I always get, because we get folks that email us all the time. So if you guys have questions, please stand up and head to the mic. But if you don't, that's okay. We got a lot of FAQs that we get, right? And one of them is like, hey, I've been in for 17 years, and you can only be 18 years time in service. Can I apply? That's something that we've historically had because we need that return on investment on the back end, right? We don't want you to just retire when you're in phase 3 of the program. But I believe we're starting to build these administrative locks that helps us move forward with that and potentially waive that to be able to, get folks that are 18, they're locked in. They had their, if you will, their Syrian moment, and so they're locked in the Air Force. And so if they want to be and make a career out of this, then let's give them the opportunity to apply and give them that training. So we are looking into the specifically the time in service and kind of on a case-by-case waiving that. So just for those of you that have been in for a little bit longer and are interested in the program.
Hi, my name is Technical Sergeant Blue. I was just wondering what the main thing someone could do as they're approaching trying to become a Master Sergeant and be eligible for this program. What is something that you would recommend doing in the meantime to make ourselves a better candidate?
Ryan, you probably, that's a great question. I will say, so we have a board every year, and it typically involves the LLC, which is our correspondence division within the Legislative Liaison Directorate. So the division chief, he's an 06. It has me or my successor, the enlisted fellows program manager, along with a legacy fellow who's been in the program, and then a couple other chiefs that are enlisted, senior enlisted that are in the program. In this case, it probably is Senior Osborne for next year. We all see things very differently, but I think the things that stay consistent is your ability to perform at the highest levels. So you have to step out of the comfort zone, and we have to kind of see that. But I think more importantly, if you look at the Hill, which is where you're going to really make the most of your knowledge and the bang for your buck, is your network. And I'm sure you've heard it many times, your net work is your net worth, right? That's incredibly true on the Hill. I would even throw a little spin on it. Information is currency on the Hill. There's political capital, which is an extra, if you will, currency that we don't really talk about too much, but there's political capital, which is this fictitious, very artsy kind of thing. And then we have information, which is the currency, right? And your network. And those are the 3 things that make you valuable. So what you really have to do is step out of your comfort zone, one, to develop those interpersonal skills, to allow you to make friends, if you will, right? Like be able to relate to others right away, solve problems. You got to understand the human component. I think that that's probably the most important, and we have to see it, because when we look at the records, all we see is black and white what you've done. And then that kind of gets you through the first phase of the boarding process. The second phase is the interview. That's when we need to see that you can operate, you can handle yourself, you can articulate, you can be able to go on the Hill. Because a lot of these offices, there's 535, 100 on the Senate, 435 on the House, plus 6 delegates who are also on committees. And although they're not voting members on the floor, they can vote in their committee. So they're still they have a lot of influence. And so wherever we put you is going to be different. The environment's going to be different. Are you able to learn people and be able to adjust? I think that that's probably the one thing that I look for when I'm interviewing candidates. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with everything that Chief is saying. Specifically too, right? Like anyone can look good on paper. Paper can tell a story of like your career, but paper doesn't tell me who you are as a person. And the biggest part about this fellowship is when you are on the Hill, like, are you able to work with different personalities, right? Like, and sometimes it's hard to show on paper. Anyone can look like a rock star, but when you make it past that phase, when you make it past the initial phase, and we invite you to come for the interview portion, like we want to see who you are. We want to see, can we trust you on the Hill with a member of Congress, right? Like, we don't need anyone acting crazy with a member of Congress office, like it's not, so just pretty much everything that Chief was saying, but I think the biggest thing to take away too is we care about who you are as a person too. Like, what do you value as a person? And in the interview process, you can kind of see through some of that too.
Just to tack on to what Senior said right there at the end, I think authenticity within your interview is paramount, because a lot of people show up to these interviews and I think they say what they think we want to hear versus what they are, and we're in a very diverse set of diverse cohort, and we don't want someone who's going to show up and just tell me what I want to hear. I want to actually know who you are. So, yeah.
Any other questions?
Do we have a question over there?
Hey, I'm Tech Sergeant Haggett. Actually, you answered it. I was going to ask you about if you guys do a ETP waiver for time and service. So.
Thank you. No, and I want you to know that this is not, as this program is evolving, things are changing. So we had some fiscal constraints last year, which is why for AY27 we could only hire 1. We are hoping to hire 3 this year. That's the game plan. Not guaranteed, right? We'll hire at least 1, but we're hoping 3. And that could be a mix of seniors and masters, right? I think probably the more adequate mix, just based on the way the phase 3 kind of pans out, is 1 senior and 2 masters. It's probably going to be it. But again, if there are 2 seniors that are complete rock stars, and then 1 master, like we're not really stuck on the rank. We really want to zero in on the person. So as Senior Osborne was kind of alluding to, like you're gonna feel it in the interview, and we've been very successful. And to kind of foot stomp some of the things that she was alluding to, we've had fellows, luckily no enlisted fellows, but we've had fellows in the past and other services as well, where they go in there, they really royally mess it up. And now you have a member of Congress calling up, the Secretary of the Air Force or the Secretary of War on his cell phone and is, complaining. It happens. So we want to make sure that we're throwing the right caliber of folks onto the Hill.
Throwing in some admin. So there is an active duty service commitment that comes with it. So if you need to put in a waiver for anything, I say go for it. And as long as you are okay with that active duty service commitment, you'll be fine. Any other questions?
We could talk a little bit about how maybe how our mission kind of goes complementary to what AFSA does, right? When I became an AFSA member, I was an A1C and a chief sponsored my membership, right? I think that was, if you will, my steering moment, because he didn't know me. but he threw out, I'm not sure what it was probably $50. It was a long time ago. And I was like, I think he gave me a 1 year. Maybe he wanted to test the waters. But after that, I started learning about AFSA, started going to AFSA meetings and realized all the things that they were doing on the Hill and what they were advocating for. Once I was working on the Hill, I realized the complexities involved in that. And it truly is, the name of the game is to develop a movement. And you don't know, when we see the NDA come out of the, if you will, the Hill, and it comes out with 1,500 pages, and you're like, that is incredibly large. Well, it's because there's so many subcomponents of that. And you have professional staff members who write probably 90% of that. And then you have individual members fighting for those, for the different amendments that they want included. And then when you go to conference, the House and the Senate go at it to figure out what gets stripped and what doesn't. Well, along the way, touch points like AFSA, MOA, and other military organizations are out there, military support organizations, veteran support organizations are out there advocating on the Hill and meeting regularly with these staff members or the members of Congress to get their buy-in. Because they're only going to get pushed, again, the political capital I spoke about before, that's very limited. If a member of Congress decides to spend his political capital on one thing or a couple things, it's gone. And it's hard to explain unless we really go into the weeds. But when you have folks coming to the Hill, and basically like folks like John going to the Hill, talking specifically about how this is affecting service members and what it's doing, and they get that buy-in in the story, now they're willing to spend that political capital to advance that amendment. So we're very, very confident. We see it. We learn the expertise. Now we can kind of share, we can work hand in hand with AFSA from a private capacity, but then we're also helping our DAF top 8 senior leaders be able to express that to the Hill from a more official standpoint.
Can we get a round of applause? Thank you guys so much for being here. And real quick, I want to touch on a point that Chief Perez said, the information as currency. And I think that's for AFSA and for our members, and I know I've stressed this before, is that when you all reach out to us and you tell us what's it like, boots on the ground, what are you hearing, quality of life issues, when we relay that message back to Congress, that information is really currency. And so I just wanted to encourage you all to keep on doing that. But please, as we wrap up our time with the DAF Legislative Liaison Team, Chief Perez, Senior Phillips, Senior Osborne, Sergeant Watson, thank you. Thank you for taking the time to be with us today and for sharing your experiences with our members. For anyone interested in learning more or contacting this program, please see the details on the flyer. It's on our Facebook page right now, and please see that for the contact information. But please join me in thanking our panel one last time for all the terrific information they had. And that concludes this event.